Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and this is an introduction to David, King Messiah. So, after much prayer and discussion, frustration and deliberation, Hashem has finally given me direction on the first Shabbat after Yom Kippur, which was Shabbat HaAzinu, after the final class of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. I didn't know where to go. I did not know what to do. Remember, that was 3.5 years of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. Fortunately, I'd been asked about some of the teachings that we give in our Zoom group, specifically regarding the Ramchal's timeline, which turned into the last series we just completed. So I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to put that out while I work on this, okay? But it kind of gives me space to develop the project. So here's what happened. I had no idea of the direction that I would go after the 3.5 years of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and I went through almost all my books. Thank God I got plenty, but nothing really sat. So on that Shabbat, HaAzinu, I was reading what I thought was going to be the next class, and I realized I can't teach this to the public. This is not something that is appropriate to put on YouTube. There's too many things that should not be over there, again, with certain books. So I frustratingly went back to the bookshelf, and without thinking, because usually when I think that kind of gets me into trouble, I just stood there. Obviously, I was praying all the time about it. Please give me the right thing to say, and so on. When one book caught my eye, and that was Torah Ha'adam, the Instruction of Man, by the Ramban, which led me to the book right next to it, David Malka Meshicha, David King Messiah, written by Rabbi Avraham Ze'ev Mazuz. Now, there it was. You have that connection over there between Adam and David, man and his rectification, the beginning and the end, and that is inseparable. So in this series, we will go through everything regarding David, King of Israel, the spiritual and the physical and everything in between. I mean everything. We focus on many things here in TOA, but now is the time to focus on the understanding of why God chose David. I think that's important, right? Now, I also believe that this is the time to be, how should we say, to become better people, better human beings, regardless of we're Jews or non-Jews, it doesn't matter. But also learning about the man whom God said is one after his own heart, and why this man is to be called King Mashiach, and how the process even works. Now, there is a tremendous amount of material to cover because we are going to go into every aspect of his life, not only his life, everything that was said about him in this world and in the world to come from all our writings throughout the Tanakh, all the writings of the sages going back thousands of years, from the beginning until the end of time. Everything. His interactions, his viewpoints, his mindset, his actions, plenty of character building side quests, stories and lore from the 4 levels of the Torah, from the Pardes, his trip-ups and his slip-ups, and of course, his truest power, the one that motivated him every waking moment of every day. Everything that King David was, is, and will be. Like we said, we will get into it in the coming teachings. We can never be David. We're not supposed to be David, though, so we can't really compare ourselves. We're all going to fall short, okay? We just need to know that one key ingredient that he had, this was not the thing that I mentioned before, one key ingredient that he had that is enough to change anyone's life completely, and that is hishtadlut. Put forth the effort. When you try and fail, and make no mistake, you absolutely will fail, and this is by design for your own good. That's where your truest test lies. So try again. Never give up. But you must try, as nothing will be done for you. Many times over the past years, we have discussed the footsteps of Messiah, and specifically in the Calling All Jews series, where we dedicated several classes to this matter. Now, of course, this has nothing to do with the actual footsteps so much as it speaks of the heels of Messiah, bi'ikvata dimshicha, right? Like we said, Mashiach is the final rectification for Adam, man. It began with Abraham, who is the very top of the head. He was the first, and David merited to be the last, the culmination. The lowest part of the body is the heel, akev, which is why Jacob is called Yaakov, Yud Akev, because it is from his seed that will conclude the final rectification. And though the heel is literally the lowest part of the body, right? There's nothing lower than the heel. It is arguably, in this spiritual context, the most important. How so? Because the heel is on which everything where we are stands. Everything that we are stands. Your heel decides where you are holding. It dictates where you are holding. And that is what the final redemption is all about. You can be the wrong guy in the right place because of where you stand, or the right guy in the wrong place, and all your efforts will be for naught if you are not where you need to be. Now, I'm not speaking physically or geographically necessarily, although if you've watched my channel, you know exactly where I stand as far as that goes. But I'm speaking of where you are holding or standing when it comes to your relationship with God, doing what you, specifically you, need to do. Wherever your eyes go, that is where you will be led. We've been warned about this in the Shema. Do not follow your eyes when it comes to matters of the world, because before you know it, you will find yourself on the outside, straying. But if you focus on God, no matter where you are or who you are, you will always be able to find your way back home. This was the focus of David. From all aspects of life, throughout all his experiences and his writings, we see this one constant. So too, we need to focus on God and just put one foot in front of the other with emunah and bitachon. And before we know it, we're going to be standing right where we need to be. This was true then, and it is true now, because this is the way of King David. As it says in Masechet Rosh Hashanah 25a, David Melech Israel Chai Vekayam. David, King of Israel, lives and is present now. So, I want to give you a brief breakdown of how this series is going to go. It begins with an in-depth introduction into David consisting of several parts. These parts all discuss the magnitude of holiness of the levels of King David, as given by our sages and the prophets over the course of thousands of years. And once we conclude with those, the first course, then we're going to get into the thick of it, as we have 14 chapters, 14 being the numerical value of the name David, David, Daled Vav Daled, of the more spiritual aspects of who he is across all four levels of the Torah, the Pardes, like we said. Once we get through that, afterwards we have a section called Imrot Tehorot, pure sayings from the treasuries, the storehouses of David. These are his sayings, his prayers, and the things which he asked of God throughout the entirety of the holy texts. You are going to see David and everything leading to him throughout all the writings. And again, there's so much to cover, and this is a study as well as life lessons in every single class. There are takeaways that we can apply to our daily lives. Not to mention the direction of what to expect the world to look like when King Messiah is on the scene. So I hope you can stick around. And so we begin this incredible journey into the life and essence of this man, of whom God said through the prophet Hosea in Hosea 3:5, afterwards shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. David, King Messiah, the man, the myth, the legend, the shepherd, the king, the Mashiach. A man after God's own heart. This verse can be found in 1 Samuel 13:14, and it reads, "But now your kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought for himself a man after his heart, and the Lord has appointed him to be a ruler over his people." And who would this be? None other than David ben Ishai, also known as the sweet singer of Israel, as said in 2 Samuel 23:1. And these are the last words of David, the saying of David, the son of Jesse, and the saying of the man raised on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet singer of Israel. The heart of Israel. King David is considered to be the heart of all Israel. As we know, the Mashiach's soul is directly connected with every Jew. That's why we feel it now, especially more than ever. Because when we all ask for Mashiach, God will then send him. But we have to ask. That's why it has been awakened in us right now. That's why troubles come upon us, because we realize there's nowhere to turn but to God. Send the Redeemer. Let's finish this. Let's do this. We need to be aware of this gap, of what is missing, not only from our personal lives, but from the world itself. In other words, whether you have your personal struggles or you see the way the world is working and this is not how it should be. Something is wrong here. There's no way we can achieve this awareness if we are concerned only with ourselves, because that limits us. Please save me. It's not about saving me. It's about elevating the world. It's not about just me and my problems and I'll be okay, but the rest of the world, no. We are asking mamash for Malchut Shamayim, the kingdom of heaven, to be here in the world. So God helps us along by instilling the desire in our hearts, because he gave us that power and responsibility, as said through Moses upon his deathbed. In Deuteronomy 33:7, it said, "May this also be for Judah," meaning like the blessing for Reuven, that may he live and not die, may Judah also live. And he, Moses, said, "O Lord, hearken to Judah's voice, and bring him to his people. May his hands do battle for him, and may you be a help against his adversaries." There's a reason that back then Yehudah was mentioned, because, hey, here we are. And this matches perfectly with why Ishmael is called Ishmael from Genesis 16:11. "And the angel of the Lord said to her," Hagar, "Behold, you will conceive and bear a son, and you shall name him Ishmael. The Lord will hear, for the Lord has heard your affliction." Why was the boy not called Shamael, right? As in the Lord heard. That is currently what's going on, but rather Ishma, will hear El, in the future tense. This is because Ishmael serves as nothing more than the catalyst to cause those who would remain from the tribes, Judah, the Jews in particular, to use our voice and cry out to God, thanks to Ishmael, right? And because they will be squeezing us, Ishmael, God will hear our cries. And David solidified that through his songs, connecting the very heart of Israel. As the Vilna Gaon, or the Gra, we discussed him plenty of times, the series Acharit Kereshit over there, he points out in Song of Songs 5:2, expressing our yearning for God in this long night, which is the exile, when Solomon said, "I sleep, but my heart," Mashiach, "my heart is awake. Hark, my beloved is knocking. Open for me, my sister, my beloved, my dove, my perfect one. Achoti, Ra'ayati, Yonati, Tamati." Now, Kol Dodi, the voice of David. Dodi is the letters of David. Dofek, knocks upon the chambers of my heart. In fact, if you read this verse, it reads like a heartbeat, right? Achoti, Ra'ayati, Yonati, Tamati, my sister, my beloved, my dove, my perfect one. It's actually the heartbeat of Israel right now. And what are we waiting and yearning for, if not God's kingdom to be instilled in the world, like we said, through David, his servant, the sweet singer of Israel, whose songs never cease to beat according to the hearts of his people. That's why, no matter what it is, there's always a Tehillim, there's always a psalm that we can say for the specific situation that we are in, based on the life and the experience that David experienced at that time. He drew from Ruach HaKodesh, and he wrote those things down. If you're trouble, if you want something for sickness, if you are afraid, if you want something for success, to defeat your enemies, to be cheered up, a quick pick-me-up, that's what the Psalms are for. In other words, we're continuing in this world. In the book of Formation, Sefer Yetzirah, which is ascribed to Abraham, our father, Avraham Avinu, it says, "The heart is to the body like the king is to the state," specifically during a time of war. Right? Why? Because when the people have confidence and trust in their king, though it be a time of war, in other words, a time of great distress, they completely trust the king to protect them, and so he does. In his words for Parashat Miketz, the end. Funny, we just read it right now. It just so happened to work out this way, that this was now the Parsha. David the king, peace be upon him, alav shalom, he is the heart of all Israel, and he is the man who established an offering of tshuva, repentance, in order to purify the left chamber of the heart from the leaven which dwells there. This is the true strength. The man of God, Ish HaElohim. David is also known as Ish HaElohim, man of God. Now, clearly we have heard this phrase before, because the first and most famous person to be given this title was Moses, the man of God, in Deuteronomy 33:1. And it says, V'zot habracha asher berech Moshe, Ish HaElohim et bnei Yisrael lifnei moto. And this is the blessing which Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel just before his death. However, it is not exclusive to Moses, though he was the first and greatest of all the others to receive this title. But if you go through the Torah, you will see that Ish HaElohim, or Ish Elohim, man of God, is given also to prophets. But there are other things, and they are one who is, let's say, tied to the Shekhinah, and one who decrees and God obliges. Tzaddik gozer v'akadosh baruch hu mekayem. Now, it doesn't say anywhere that David was in fact Ish HaElohim during his own lifetime. However, simply for the fact that he wrote the Psalms, which is all prophecy, proves that he holds this title as well. Later, however, we do see that it is referred to him as a man of God. Ish Elohim in Nehemiah 12:24. It said, and their brethren were opposite them to praise and to give thanks by the command of David, the man of God. A watch opposite a watch. Lodot b'mitzvat David ish ha'elohim mishmar leumat mishmar. And then again in 12:36, which says, David the man of God, right? Hanai with the musical instruments, and David the man of God, and Ezra the scholar was before them. ואחיו שמעיה ועזראל מלאלי גלאי מעיל נתנאל ויהודה חנני בכל שיר דוד איש האלוהים, in all the songs of David, the man of God. If for nothing else, this proves that David obviously is a man of God, so now he's referred to directly by Ezra and Nehemiah. So we can ask why this person is called Ish Elohim on the side of judgment. Elohim is the side of judgment, and not Ish Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? From the side of mercy. Prophecy is extremely pure light. This is what it comes down to. It's extremely pure light that comes down to the recipient. And depending where you are, not every prophet sees things the same. It all comes through layers, like filters, if you will. Moses, filterless. Boom. Straight up images, understanding, meaning, no riddles, just straight up, oh, this is what it is. The prophets, sometimes there are riddles. That's why they had to use words like to, it looked like, it reminded like, it was sort of, kind of, if this, that, and the other. The best words to describe what they saw in the spiritual sense, okay? Because you still have to translate the spiritual into the physical. So like we said, prophecy is pure light that is coming down directly to the recipient. And in every case, aside from Moses, the prophet would either be in an unconscious state, a meditative state, or if they got hit with it, their bodies would completely convulse because they are receiving a super spiritual download into a physical body, which is too much for it to bear. In ancient times, one could not differ necessarily between a prophet or a madman. As it said that they would roll around on the ground when they got prophecy. They would roll around on the ground, they're pulling at themselves, ripping out their hair, trying to remove the physical flesh from their bodies, given the levels that they were on personally, right? The higher prophets, they were, maybe a little bit more dignified. Nevertheless, obviously, when you get something like this, it has nothing, it's the spiritual that is being infused into the physical. And it can't handle it because they don't necessarily mesh. That being said, Ish HaElohim, on the side of judgment, is when a man completely submits the side of judgment within himself, the left side. And then he is open to receive the pure light since he emptied out his own ego, so to speak. It is said in Masechet Yoma that based on David's natural inclination, he had to completely go against himself, if you will. Okay, this is very interesting. Now, this is true for all great men, especially when it comes to their biggest challenges and trials. For instance, the most famous one is actually Abraham, being the embodiment of loving kindness and mercy in this world, and Isaac being the embodiment of judgment. They had to overcome their own natural and spiritual inclination wholeheartedly in order to succeed in the Akedah. They had to do this. That was their final test, right? If a person is naturally generous, and they give all the time, that's their natural inclination. But if a person is naturally stingy, if you will, and they go against that and they give, wow, that's a big deal over here. Moses is one of the highest souls to have ever been created, the very pinnacle of humanity in this world, rivaling heavenly hosts. And he knew it, which is why he had to go against who he was in order to become the most humble man to have ever lived. And this, of course, is according to God. I'm not saying this, of course I agree with it, but this is written directly there in the Torah. So what does it mean? Moses knew, meaning who he was. He knew who his neshama was, and he saw, I am who I am because this is what I received from God. I am nothing. V'nachenuma, why do you even consider me? That was one of his greatness, because he understood what every breath that he took, where it actually comes from. That's why the higher a person gets, the more humble they get, because they understand everything is God. That's why kids, they don't know anything. They think they're going to live forever, right? The older you get, I'm telling you, every year that goes by, I'm starting to think about things. All right, anyway, but David came from the side of fire and rage, as he was called Admoni, Adom, red, likened to the bloodthirsty Esav. And yet this man was a shepherd and a poet and did so much chesed throughout his life, all going against his natural inclination. Now that's one thing, but this is the greatness. So make no mistake, he took up the sword, of course, for the sake of the Lord with the same zeal as he did everything else. Now, this is not bloodlust, right? God said, okay, go kill Amalek. So David went in there, and it wasn't like, it wasn't like that, like in bloodlust in that sense, but rather the desire to obey God by destroying his enemies. Just as we are commanded to make joyous every mitzvah that we do. Ivdu et Hashem besimcha. All the mitzvot that you do, you should do it with great joy. So again, it wasn't that David took pleasure in killing. That's not what this is about. You see, it's easy to do what we are inclined to do, like we said, especially when it is a mitzvah. So if David was inclined to kill, sure, if he had, that blood, if you're saying that he had that bloodlust, then it shouldn't be a problem. But that wouldn't make David a great man, you see? If that's the case, then it's no big deal. Then of course God would send that guy to go do this because, right? But what does God do? God sent Moses to go speak to Pharaoh. Moses, kvad peh and kvad lashon. I can't speak properly and I have a lisp. And you want me to go be your mouthpiece to Pharaoh? You get it? The least likely, the one that has to overcome the greatest challenges, that's who God uses. So, you get the merit for doing the mitzvah, sure. But it's not the same as someone doing the exact same mitzvah who is not necessarily inclined to do so, overcoming their base nature and spiritual inclination. So if David would kill for the sake of killing and enjoy it for its own sake, he would clearly not be the man God promised to establish his name forever. Then David would not be David, you see? This is not going against one's nature, what David did. This is overcoming said nature and bending it to your will, which is the will of God. That was one of his greatness. This turns good men into great men and great men into kings. And finally, regarding Ish Elohim, what does it mean? According to Midrash V'zot HaBracha, chapter 11, it says, Rabbi Avin said, Ish Elohim is a man, Ish, from the waist down, and Ha-Elohim, obviously, from the top half, waist up. The only reason he is not fully in the Ha-Elohim category is because he still must be connected to this world in the body, within the body. But when you get to that level, you can even purify your body within your lifetime, which means there is no reason for it to decompose and return to dust, though it be laid in the dust, yes, from which it came, because that is the same purpose, to purify the body. So Moses, like we said, Moses' soul did not want to leave his body because Moses' body was purified. That's how he could go to the heavens and come back down in his physical form. No problem. God's chosen, Bechir Hashem. From where do we know that David is the chosen one of God? I don't know. Let's start listing them. I mean, there's plenty. I'll just give you some examples. Psalms 89:4. I formed a covenant with my chosen one. I swore to David, my servant. Psalms 78:70. And he chose his servant David. 1 Kings 8:16. Since the day that I brought forth my people Israel out of Egypt, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Israel to build a house that my name be therein, but I chose David to be over my people Israel. 2 Chronicles 6:6. And I chose Jerusalem that my name might be there, and I chose David to be over my people Israel. And on and on and on. And since we know that David is God's servant and his chosen, we can see both factors mentioned in Isaiah 42:1. Behold my servant, I will support him, my chosen one, whom my soul desires. I have placed my spirit upon him. He shall promulgate justice to the nations. Obviously speaking of David, King Messiah. Speaking of, Mashiach Hashem, the Lord's anointed. The word Mashiach comes from the verb limshoch, almost means like to spread or to smear. The biblically speaking of this word is, of course, referring to those who are chosen by God for a specific task. In other words, just like angels, malachim are called also emissaries, messengers. They're sent out to do a specific task, and their name goes according to the task that they have to perform. So we have the Kohanim, right? The priests. In Leviticus 4:3, it says, Im HaKohen HaMashiach. What, is the Kohen now the Messiah? No, right? If the anointed Kohen sins, bringing guilt to the people, then he shall bring for his sin, which he has committed, and so on. So here we have the Kohanim are being anointed. And again, it says in 4:5, and the anointed Kohen. How does it sound in Hebrew? Velakach HaKohen HaMashiach. No, the Kohen is not the Mashiach, but he is in fact anointed. Okay, even King Saul, the first king of Israel, he is referred to as the anointed one of God. By who? By David himself. 1 Samuel 24:7. And he said to his men, they're like, hey, let's go kill Saul. He's sleeping right there. And he said to his men, the Lord forbid it for me, that I should do this thing to my Lord, to the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand upon him, for he is the Lord's anointed. He's speaking of King Saul. What the kings and the priests have in common is that they have actually been anointed by actual oil. Yes? Moses anointed the first priests, Aaron and his sons, right? And from there on out, either a prophet or a priest would anoint the king. But wait, Cyrus the Mede was also called God's Mashiach, the anointed of the Lord, in Isaiah 45:1. Look what it says. Ko amar Hashem limshicho lekoresh. Wow, so said the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus. He was not a Jew, he was an idolater, and yet he was chosen by God to perform a specific task. But there is only one King Mashiach, and that is David. And as we said in 2 Samuel 23:1-2, and these are the last words of David, the saying of David, the son of Jesse, and the saying of the man raised on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet singer of Israel. The Spirit of the Lord spoke in me, and his word was upon my tongue. And for the future, as said in Psalms 132:17, there I shall cause David's horn to sprout. I have set up a lamp for my anointed. Limshichi. The 70 years of David. The 70 years of the life of David, where did he get those from? He got those from Adam. We know this famously. And they were his choicest years that he gave up, that Adam gave up. Adam could have lived to 1,000 years. And the reason they are considered his choicest years is simply because they were his last. He gains experience and wisdom every year that goes by exponentially. It wasn't like back in the day where they got old. They just lived till a certain day and then that was it. It was their time to expire. It wasn't like, oh, life's getting tough. I'm getting my back and my knees and this and that. It was just like, okay, well, it's about that time. So every year we age, even now, although we're getting slower, but not back then, we gain wisdom. And Adam, who saw till the ends of all time, saw it fit to give his best years to David because he says he's going to complete what I messed up over there. There is another opinion, this is interesting, another opinion from the Gra in Tikkunei Zohar that David received 70 years from Joseph Dafka, as they are the connection of Yesod, foundation of Joseph, and Malchut, kingship of David, because Yesod is the funnel that gives all the we'll call it the blessings, the abundance of all the Sfirot, goes through Yesod down being received by Malchut, which is David. It states that Joseph, aka Mashiach ben Yosef, is on the left side, that is the ox, and he is on the side of Isaac, also on the side of the left, the side of judgment. Isaac lived to be 180, and Joseph was also supposed to live to the same age, right? Because he came from that same root. But Joseph relinquished his 70 years and gave them to David, leaving him with 110 years of life. Just another opinion, found it fascinating. His lineage is holy and pure. We're giving you like bullet point topics over here. So why do we have to say this, that his lineage is holy and pure? Because David's lineage was actually in question since before he was born. At that point, his father Ishai, Jesse, was a righteous man who bore 7 sons, though in Chronicles it says he had 6 sons. And it writes in some places 7, some places 6, okay? Some places it says 7 with David, some places 6 without David, some places 7 without David, and then David would be the 8th. But okay, we're going with the compilation that we have here, right? So it says that he bore 7 sons, each more beautiful and glorious than the next. They're all very impressive, tall, good-looking, physically strong, and with above-average intelligence. But Ishai kept on digging into his own lineage and found out that his ancestor, Ruth, was a Moabite. And there was a question, since God said that no Moabite will ever be allowed to convert because of how they treated Israel in the wilderness, though it was in the merit of Abraham that they existed in the first place when he prayed for Lot to be saved, right? God doesn't play that. This person showed you kindness, and you repay that kindness with aggression, with ill will. You have no future in this world. And so the Moabites were completely cut off. Though later on we see David had a male Moabite servant, and he said, I listen, I love you, I love God, I want to convert. And David said, you know what it says, what we just said. He said, yeah, but what about your great-grandmother? David's like, good point, let me look into this. And he says, no, it's only the men that cannot convert, the women can. Sorry, buddy, but you can be a righteous Noahide. All right, so in any case, so we saw only women were allowed in from the answer that David gave him. So in any case, Ishai sent away his wife because he was afraid to have any more children, lest they be considered carrying an unholy spirit of the questionable lineage of the Moabites, right? But one night, when he thought that he was going to be with his concubine, his wife, whose name is Nitzevet bat Adiel, holy woman, from the tribe of Dan, pulled a Rachel Leah switcheroo over there because she saw that David needed to come into the world. So she sent the concubine away and she went into the bed. Everything was dark. Nobody knew. Nobody was wiser, right? After a few months, when she began to show, Ishai accused her of harlotry, of adultery, because how in the world did she get pregnant? It wasn't from the Holy Spirit, now was it? And so when David was born, for a time, he was considered questionable at best, right? And a bastard at worst. And since his father and brothers did not know what to do with him, they made him live in the field, and he did not know what it was like to sleep in a bed under a roof for 28 years of his life, for the first 28 years. By the way, he fought Goliath when he was 28. Not like all the movies that they're putting out right now, all these TV shows and movies. David was not a boy. He was a man. He was 28 years old when he fought Goliath. It's very simple in the text over there. You could read the age of things. You see the timetable over there. I don't know why they're doing children, but I guess it sells. In any case, if you want real Torah, that's not where you go. And this story gives preface to the Ben Ish Chai's wonderful insight into the famous verse in Psalms 118:22, where it says, "The stone that the builders rejected became a cornerstone. Even ma'asu habonim hayta lerosh pina." This is fascinating. He says that this verse was to describe the rejection David got from his own blood brothers, as he was suspected to be illegitimate. The hint is in the word habonim, the builders. The letter hey is not part of the word, it just means the ha-bonim, right? Bonim is builders. So we're left with bonim. You take away the vav, which has the numerical value of 6, meaning for his brothers, you move it out, and you are left with banim, as in 6 sons. You see, now you have something new within the same exact verse. Even ma'asu hashesh banim, the stone that the 6 sons rejected. Who are these 6 sons? They are the 6 older brothers of David, as he was the 7th. As he became Rosh Pinah, the cornerstone. Now some say there's actually the cornerstone, Rosh Pinah, on the corner, the bottom corner of the building. Others mean it was actually the capstone, that it's like the corner on top that would actually hold the structure. But either or. And David was remarkably wise and merited incredible amounts of knowledge throughout his lifetime because his primary focus in everything he did was the truth. Emet. It is all about the truth. Everything else falls away. Anything that is not true has no legs to stand on. Everything will fall. But the emet me'eretz titzmach. Who is titzmach? Who is the shoot? That is the shoot of Jesse. No matter the cost, no matter the difficulty, it was always about the truth. As a result, the light of the Shekhinah was always hovering over him. And it was felt and it was seen, spiritually speaking, of course, right? As said in 1 Samuel 18:14, Vayhi David lechol drachav maskil va'Adonai imo. And David was successful in all his ways. All means all. And the Lord was with him. David was also the head of the Sanhedrin, which means that he was the greatest Torah scholar in Israel. And with that, he was also the judge and posek, meaning he would issue decrees to the people, the halachot, how Israel would live. He was establishing the halacha by which every Jew within his kingdom should live. This is a big deal. He wasn't just a warrior king, Torah scholar, the head of the Sanhedrin. There's another beautiful hint in the word pinah, as in cornerstone, right? Check this out. What comes before? Because it's Rosh Pinah. Rosh means first. So we're looking at the letters that came before Pei, Nun, Hey, that spell Pinah, corner. In the Hebrew alphabet, before the Pei comes the letter Ein, before the Nun comes the letter Mem, and before the Hey comes the letter Dalet. Together that gives us Mada, as in Da'at, as in knowledge, you see. And there's no way just another human being could receive such incredible amounts of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge on their own, unless it was given to them by God. Hence the follow-up verse that says, "This was from the Lord. It is wondrous in our eyes." Even masu abanim hayta lerosh pinah, me'et Adonai hayta zot, hi niflat beinenu. What is this? Where did this guy come from? What is going on here? As we said, this was only because God was always with him. And David was successful in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. This proves his lineage was holy and pure. God chose David, his servant, for a reason. He has a perfect, uninterrupted, holy and righteous lineage going back 10 generations from Peretz, as we read as we could read in the end of Ruth. By the way, 2 parashat ago, this is where we see that lineage begin, Yehuda and Tamar. Ruth chapter 3 in the end. And these are the generations of Peretz. Peretz begot Chetzron, Chetzron begot Ram, Ram begot Aminadav, Aminadav begot Nachshon, Nachshon begot Salma, Salma begot Boaz, and Boaz begot Oved, and Oved begot Ishai, and Ishai begot David. There's a reason all this is written over there. As our sages say, he is a tzaddik, son of a tzaddik, tzaddik ben tzaddik, and so on for a complete 10 generations. And we can even go back further. We know that David is the 14th king of Israel, right? Going back, we have now these 10. We got Judah, his father. Then we have Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham, bringing the total to 14, which again is the numerical value of the name David. The patriarchs themselves were kings of the world at the time. And though Joseph was the viceroy and then interim king in Egypt, upon his deathbed, Jacob declared the kingship is for Judah, and it shall never depart, as said in Genesis 49:10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the student of the law from between his feet. In other words, Judah is synonymous also with kingship and with Torah, the student of the law. Until Shiloh comes. Shiloh, this is a hint towards Mashiach. Shiloh is also a numerical value of Moshe, just so you know, the giver of the law. And to him will be a gathering of all the peoples. This is what Mashiach is supposed to do, the ingathering, right? This is the line of kings alluding to and leading to King Messiah. King David is the soul of Adam. Whenever we mention one of the greats, particularly the 7 Ushpezin, meaning Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David, we do not follow with Zichronam Livracha. Let's say if someone passes away, Zichronam Livracha, or Zichron Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. But rather we say Alehem HaShalom, or Alav HaShalom, especially in the Sephardi Minyan. You know, when we say, whenever we say the name of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Alehem HaShalom, right away, Alehem HaShalom. Peace be upon them. The reason is that due to their greatness and what they were able to achieve in life is only a fraction of what they still achieve after death, because then they're no longer limited, because they didn't really die. You see, it's not about the physical body. We have to get beyond ourselves. It's not about the physical body. The body is only here to house the soul and enable it to work in this world. And so the righteous are never considered dead, even if they are in fact buried. They are called those who sleep or slumber in the dust, only to certainly rise again, just like the angel Gabriel told Daniel in chapter 12:2. And many who sleep in the dust, v'rabim miyeshanei admat afar, of the earth will awaken, some for these for eternal life, chayei netzach, chayei olam haba, and these for disgrace, for eternal abhorrence. In other words, death as we know it today, we're just taking some long naps over here, some longer than others. And what does he tell him in the very last verse of the book? And you, Daniel, right, go to the end and you will rest and rise. Rest and rise. You mean die and rise? No, rest, take a little nap. It's all good, man. You did what you needed to do. Rise to your lot in the end of the days. Now, obviously, you need the Hebrew for this. It says, V'ata lech laketz v'tanuach, rest, noach, tanuach, rest, v'ta'amod, and you will stand, legoalcha, to your lot, leketz, to the end, hayamin, to the end of the right. It doesn't say the end of days. It says the end of right, meaning the side of mercy. The right is the side of mercy. Left is the side of judgment. Wherever it says end of days, ketz hayamim, that's where you know it's not a good thing. But ketz hayamin, here Daniel already knows he's going to go take a nap right now, and he's rising on the right side to eternal life. Okay? For the righteous, never die. And what is the word shalom? Peace, where we say peace be upon them, right? Shalom, shalom aleichem, alehem ha-shalom, specifically we say alehem, upon them, is the peace, ha-shalom. Literally translates upon them the peace. Shalom comes from the word shalem, wholeness, fulfillment, completion, with no reason to come back and correct anything because everything was already rectified by these individuals. This is the covenant that God also gave Pinchas, who is Elijah, who became immortal and turned into an angel of the Lord. As said in Numbers 25:12, therefore say, I hereby give him my covenant of peace. Natati lo briti shalom. He got that over there right now, and guess what? Immortality, no death. We see the connection. The body of Elijah shed its skin. It's said almost like, if you want to read the details about it, all his veins and sinews and everything just burst into fire. He became a spiritual, like a fire being. Eternal, immortal fire angel. Such is the story with David as well. What began with Adam will conclude with David, King Mashiach. And we will show you something fascinating here that speaks directly to that shortly. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were the beginning of the rectification of Adam, covering the 3 carnal sins transgressed in the garden. 1, idolatry. 2, bloodshed. 3, sexual immorality. So idolatry, this is the worship of anyone or anything other than God himself. Nobody in between, just God himself. This was corrected by Abraham, who was born to the chief idol maker in the world at that time. Not only did he break free from that idolatry, but also he redeemed his family and his entire generation. So he rectified the idolatry aspect. Then we have bloodshed, the shedding of innocent blood, corrected by Isaac, who offered his innocent blood, right? Who offered himself to God simply because he made his will known to his father Abraham. God didn't tell Isaac, come here. He told Abraham. Abraham told his son, listen, this is what God wants. And Isaac said, let's do it. If that's what God told you, that's faith right there. 3, sexual immorality. Any kind of sexual relationship with anyone other than your spouse in a modest and moral way, corrected by Jacob, who literally put his own life at risk in the house of Lavan, who tried to kill him every single day, to marry Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. Why? In order to bring forth the tribes, the children of Israel, into the world. As for King David, King Mashiach, who is the 4th leg in the chariot of God in this world, he is said in Psalms 145:21, my mouth will speak the praise of the Lord, and all flesh will bless his holy name forever and ever. In the beginning of Shmoneh Esrei, we start with Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But before that, we start with this verse. The 4 of them are always going to be connected over there. Since he will conclude the final rectification, which would come through only one manner. There's only one way that the final rectification is coming about. You must understand this. As said in Masechet Sanhedrin 97b, Israel will only be redeemed through tshuva. We talked about it in Calling All Jews. These are the final stages of the galut, the exile. And just like David was a master of taking responsibility. You want to know what the secret of David was? This is it. Everybody write this down. David was a master of taking responsibility for everything that either he did, people thought that he did, or anything else that was done while he was king of Israel. So too will each and every one of us follow suit and take responsibility for what we have done personally and what our generation has done collectively, as well as previous generations, because we could even rectify those. Like we said, we've learned here plenty of times, the leader of the generation, the king, the prime minister, the president, whoever you got running your area, that is your face. That is the face of the collective generation. So we pretty ugly today. Which, by the way, we currently do, especially in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We seek mercy and we seek redemption and absolution for previous generations that brought us to where we are today. You cannot move forward without fixing your past. Your past is just going to keep following you, right? It's not only Meshaneh Makom, Meshaneh Mazal. You have to fix all these things. You have to fix what is broken, because no matter where you go, you're still going to be there. Fix that, and then once that's done, you will no longer be in the same place, right? Because your past is yours. This is why it is said that David is the neshama of Klal Yisrael, as he unites all the lives of the ingathering of Israel to be as one man with one heart, bringing us all together connecting all the broken pieces to, now hear what I'm saying, in order to form the first Adam, who is comprised of all the souls of creation. And this will be discussed already in the next class. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm so excited about this series. So as all, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.